with our nightly learning in the book of Chafetz Chaim Shmirat HaLashon, where we get together every evening to study the book that speaks about the importance of Shmirat HaLashon, guarding our tongue, and by extension, these days, it's also our fingers with the keyboard. From speaking Lashon Hara, from saying something that we're not supposed to do, and it is named after the verse that we're going to speak about today, a verse from the book of Psalms, which says, "Mi ha'isha chafetz chaim," who is the man who desires life. That person, if you really desire life, you should guard your tongue from speaking evil and make sure that you say only good. And so the topic that the author discusses is, why is it that of all sins, of all causes there are in this world, the psalm written by King David chooses to focus on the importance of speaking properly, of not saying anything negative against someone else. So he says a few things. First of all, the consequences of speaking badly of someone else are so tremendous that it's just inevitable that we should also give it the same amount of seriousness. So, for example, if you say something negative about someone that's not true, and that causes up terminating their job, their livelihood, that's a big consequence to deal with. And so you should obviously, unless there's some kind of danger to the public, you should be careful with what you say. And secondly, when a person speaks, they're using the only part of our body that really distinguishes us from animals, from the animal kingdom, and that is our ability to speak. It's what makes us human. And so when we watch what we say, it's also important to remember that that's what makes us human. So speech is what makes us human, and the idea of preserving our speech and making sure we refine it to do it only in a good way is fundamental to who we are as spiritual creatures, rather than just simple some kind of sophisticated kind of animal. And so being a human being means also making sure that we respect our speech. Very interesting. The ability of speech is also, despite being spiritual, it is something that's very powerful. It's non-tangible, and yet it allows us to be who we are as humans. And despite being a fairly weak creature, we're able to accomplish amazing things that put us, at the far top of the animal kingdom. So we should take that with a great sense of responsibility. We're able to speak, and that means we should also respect our speech and preserve it as a holy thing, to make sure that we use it properly. Another very important point about speech, the Chafetz Chaim points out, is that it's also what allows us to do the greatest deed of all, and that is the mitzvah of studying Torah. And so since speech is something that we can use for the ultimate good, which is the mitzvah of studying Torah, we should make sure we utilize it for that good, and not, heaven forbid, the opposite. So the idea is that anything that has huge potential has that potential in both directions. And so if you have the potential to use your speech for studying Torah, for doing the greatest mitzvahs of all, for being kind to people, for giving someone a word that may save their life, that may give them the power to really carry on, then that is something we should not use callously, and we should use with really a great sense of responsibility. A very interesting point that the Chafetz Chaim makes in here, and that's a point that, by the way, he also makes throughout the book, is that the way a person conducts themselves in this world is the way God and the heavenly court treat them. So if a person is very kind, then God will be kind to them. If a person is very judgmental, then that is the way God is going to also relate to them. And so the idea is that when you speak of others, ask yourself how it is that how you would like God to see you. And so if you see someone doing something that's, kind of not okay for you, but just because you're being judgy, it's not like they're hurting you or anything, then you should make sure that you give them the benefit of the doubt, because so long as you're giving them the benefit of the doubt, so long as you're saying, well, look, they're only a human being and it must have been a tough day for them, then that's the way God also is going to look at you. Because all of us do things that are, we're all imperfect, and so if we look at other people's imperfections with a sense of like, okay, what do you want? That person has been through stuff, and it is you got to give them the benefit of the doubt. So that's the way God looks at us as well. And that's the Chafetz Chaim points out that's how Jerusalem was destroyed, because everyone was such a perfectionist. Everyone was so judgy. You ever feel it's almost like judging you? And it's like, why are you judging me? Do you have any idea of what's going on in my life? And so because people just judged each other so strictly, ultimately that's how God judged them. So when you see someone do something, make sure you give them the benefit of the doubt. Make sure you're kind. Make sure you're thoughtful. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us tonight. It was a pleasure. Bezrat Hashem every night here on different platforms. We're on Twitter, on YouTube. And Bezrat Hashem, I'll see you tomorrow.